Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to our Week 4 edition of our Sunday Roundtable here at the West Coast Champs channel. We got two guests joining us. We got Daniel and Koa joining us later, talk about NFL and NBA. We got a little bit of NHL talks coming up later in the week about the proposal of them possibly starting back up in a new playoff format, new details to come on that. And we also got another Nathan Salty segment in this show.
And now joining us, two Raider fans who really haven't had a lot of joy in the world in the last 10 years, but hopefully trying to get a few W's this year. Welcome, Koa and Daniel. What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for that nice intro.
I mean, what do you expect? I mean, Gordon and I have teams that have won Super Bowls in the last 10 years, so I mean...
Have you been to Philadelphia before, Nathan?
That's not the point. That's not the point.
Hey,
But speaking of the Raiders, how are you guys feeling moving forward into the season?
I approach each season with as much optimism as I possibly can, bro. I honestly think it's a disease of some sort of being a Raider fan, and you just think the best is going to happen every season, right? So obviously this year, year 3 into the Gruden-Mayock, or 2 of Mayock, 3 of Gruden. Each year gets more exciting, bro. And honestly, I feel like this year we should be playoff contenders with the additions that we made. But, you know, obviously it's a different game once you get on the field. But I'm liking what I'm seeing, and obviously with the schedule, I think this is one of the favorable schedules that we've had in the recent years. So I think all the blocks are there to build. So, you know, hopefully good things will happen. We'll see.
All I can do is pray, right?
That's all you can do as a Raider fan. That's all you can do.
I mean, and really, with the subtraction of Amari Cooper, and now you guys got Henry Ruggs, as Gordon has on his T-shirt. That's a big weapon to put with Derek Carr alongside after seeing Josh Jacobs break out onto the scene as he did last year. You guys think with that addition of that new playoff spot that you guys got a chance to make a run at the playoffs?
Yeah, I really hope so. It's just the thing Daniel said earlier. The last 10 years or so, the Raiders are really, really good at making you think that they're going to be good this season. However, it only happened once in the last, 15 years. But I don't know. I feel like this year's kind of different. We got a lot of good young players last year. I can't remember, other than the Derek Carr, Khalil Mack draft, a draft where multiple players contributed. And I don't know. I feel like Reggie McKenzie, who was our old GM, most of his draft picks aren't even on the team anymore. He wasn't on. He's been only gone for 2 years now. So I think they will make the playoffs. However, the AFC West in general just kind of shut up, man.
It's crazy. I mean, the shift in the AFC kind of went from, even though the AFC East was a very weak division, it was run by Brady. So you knew Brady was going to come out, probably be that AFC favorite. But now, really, you got 4 teams in the AFC West that can pretty much compete. I mean, the Broncos and the Raiders had great drafts.
Right. The Broncos had crazy free agency, too. They got Jarrell Casey, Melvin Gordon somehow. I don't know. I think, they're going to be good.
And I don't know what they're going to do with Philip Lindsay. I mean, if I was the Broncos, I would trade him. I mean, his stock's up right now, and if you're not going to use him,
right. He's one of my favorite running backs.
AFC West is going to be a shootout, honestly, this year. But, I mean, there's also good defenses in the AFC West as well. So you got the Chargers. Honestly, the Broncos isn't a bad defense still. Raiders are still up and coming. I mean, I like the additions we made with the linebackers. We've always been horrible at linebacker for so many years.
That's kind of been your guys' weakness. You had decent secondaries.
Exactly. They've never invested in the linebacker position, and finally now we got Kwiatkowski coming over from Chicago, who's a good pickup. Obviously, Corey Littleton from the Rams, who's one of the best pass coverage linebackers in the entire league, which we've been god-awful at guarding, tight ends with Kelsey and Hunter Henry in the division. You're going to have to cover those guys. So I think I like the matchups that we're playing, honestly. And, you have to trust the process. Obviously, Gruden and Mayock have the type of players that they like. And, we're bringing in guys from winning traditions, right? That's the guys that they've drafted. That's the kind of guys they've gone after in free agency. So, I'm always going to be optimistic, right? I can never, it's the beginning of the season. We're 0-0 right now, right? We're undefeated. So, I mean, it looks good. It looks good to me. We'll see.
They are looking pretty good, and they did add a lot of new players, like you said, through the draft. Exciting new players. One interesting player that I think that I'd like to ask your guys' opinion on is Marcus Mariota. He's coming in, kind of getting a little QB controversy, especially with Derek Carr not necessarily holding on to that job as secure as it should have been for him for the past couple of years. But what do you think about the addition of Marcus Mariota to this offense?
Love it.
Sorry, it just puts him on the hot seat, but I like it. But Derek Carr, it's going to be – they're showing, and with all these weapons they drafted him, they're showing, like, this could be his last season as a Raider, especially if he doesn't perform. Like, he's a good guy. He plays just well enough to where you can't really cut him. He doesn't get paid like a top QB, so he is a decent value. However, Marcus Mariota, I mean, I can't remember last time we had a decent backup quarterback either, so I remember last year Mike Glennon came in for a couple plays, and he fumbled the ball twice in a row. I was just like, we need some backup. And boy, I do love Marcus Mariota.
It's interesting because I think they brought in Mariota to make everybody be like, oh, God, like, are they going to bench Carr? Like, what's happening to Carr? Is Carr as good? Are they done with Carr? But really, I think the point of Mariota was to, number one, light that spark in Carr, make him compete, but also Derek Carr is not a healthy dude. He gets hurt a lot. So even if he's playing well, I mean, we saw your guys' playoff run that one year that everybody thought, man, this is the Raiders' year, and he broke his leg.
So does Mariota, though.
What do you mean?
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that year? They both broke their leg on the same day. Isn't that
but,
weird?
like, think about it. Mariota steps in. The Raiders still got a chance to win a game, So
yeah,
it's one of those kind of catch-22s where it's like, okay, you're going to make Derek Carr feel like, oh, God, but at the same time, that security is kind of benefiting you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Mariota's still really not that old. I mean, what did he come out, 2015, 2014, something around there?
He came out –
I think
really, he came out actually, I think, in 2013, 2014.
Yeah, I mean, and that year, Mayock had him the number one quarterback in the draft. He absolutely loved him, like when you go back in NFL Network.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense. The dynamic athletic ability that he brings as well to Gruden's offense is something that I think Carr has, but he just chooses not to show it, I feel like. Because he's an athletic dude if you look at him. So it'll be interesting. I think, I mean, a lot of people have said it, but, obviously I think Mariota could play the Tannehill to Derek Carr, which would be interesting if you see it. I think the earliest you could probably see, depending on how Carr does, because we do have a bye in week 6, which comes, I think, right after the Chiefs or before the Chiefs. So maybe, depending on how Carr looks, you could see a mid-season change like that. But I don't think they're going into the season looking to change from Carr. I think this season's Carr's to prove. He's got all the weapons to build around him. He's got the offensive line. He's got the weapons now. Finally got a revamped defense. So I mean, it's no excuses for him. He's got to make it happen. And I think that's exactly the pressure they want to put on him.
And so now, like you said, week 6, the Chiefs. So what are games that you guys are looking forward to that are outside of the AFC West matchups?
Buccaneers.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Definitely the Buccaneers.
Raiders, Buccaneers, what week? Is that they play an early game?
Yeah, that's the week right after the Chiefs, actually.
week
So, yeah. So that'll be an interesting one.
Goats?
Yeah. They got the whole opener against the Saints.
Yeah.
That'll be a good game.
Damn, they got a rough out of conference schedule.
Yeah, they got the Panthers so it balances out.
Basically the first weeks 1 through 6. I mean, it looks kind of tough, with those out of conference schedule. But after that, honestly, it gets pretty easy. I mean, if you look at it, I believe it's after week 6, they only play one team that had a winning record in 2019, and that's the Chiefs. And in week 17. So. That's unheard of when you talk about Raiders' schedule. They've always had one of the toughest schedules in the league.
The hardest one last year, statistically.
Yeah, so schedule-wise, it looks good. And then we're also not going to Kansas City in December like we always have done. And, I don't think Carr's won a game in a cold weather game in his whole career. He's terrible. So, the less cold weather games, the better. And, obviously you don't want to go to Kansas City in December. Nobody wants to go to Kansas City in December. So, like I said, it's looking better than in years past.
good that they finally have a chance to, in year 3 of the Gruden era, kind of start to really turn things around, get a nice schedule break, get some of their own young players in there. The Raiders are one of the young and upcoming AFC teams that I'd love to watch. It's just that AFC West is going to be rough. So let's move on. I'd like to hear what you guys think your guys' final record is going to be, and where you guys are going to be in the division thing as well as the conference standings, perhaps fighting for a playoff chance or maybe more. What do you guys think the record's going to be at the end of the year?
I'm thinking we get the 6th seed with a 10-6 record. I think it's really doable. The biggest thing, we have to win one game against the Chiefs. It's just like it's been too many years when we've getting zeroed for them, and just some honestly embarrassing games. And I feel like if the Raiders can beat the Chiefs at all, it'll just make a huge statement for them. It's something that something I can only dream to happen right now. But we'll see.
One of those impact wins.
Yeah, we definitely have to get one of those. Honestly, you're probably going to have to sweep the Chargers.
Yep.
Probably going to have to sweep the Broncos, if not at least split. And then, some of those other out-of-conference games are probably going to be winnable, like Panthers, Bills. Bills are going to be tough, but, that's a game that you got to fight for. Browns is another tough game like that. So they have some tough games out of conference, but they're winnable. They're not completely unheard of teams that you're just not going to beat. So they got a chance. Honestly, they got a chance to make that wild card and then hopefully make a run.
So it kind of seems like double digits is kind of the hoping point, that you guys get to 10, 11 wins, maybe fighting for a divisional crown.
Yeah, in the AFC, you're going to have to get at least 10 wins probably to make the playoffs. So that's just the nature of the beast. You got some tough teams there.
I mean, realistically, they're going to probably be fighting. They're going to fight, I would think, the Texans and the Browns and maybe the Colts for that. It's probably the Chargers, the Texans, the Browns, and the Colts to fight off for those last 2 spots, because the Ravens are going to win the division. The Chiefs are going to win their division. I would think the Titans probably get the South. So, I mean, they're now fighting those teams, and who knows, really? They're all kind of all those teams, including you guys, have had expectations super high that just kind of fizzled. So we'll see, because it's going to be interesting now if all the teams can live up to their hype.
It'd be a shame if they couldn't get more than 10 wins, especially going to Las Vegas. You saw what the Golden Knights did, and that whole city's been repping Raider gear for the last 3 years, ever since that stadium started coming up. So I'm curious to see. I know every fan of every team says it, but Raiders get absolutely screwed by refs in the past, like pass interference, roughing the passer last year that lost us some games. I wonder if we can get some Patriots love in Las Vegas from the refs.
I don't know.
So it's funny that you bring up Vegas, because it was a thing that they talked about when the Knights moved there, that they had such a great record due to their home record, because everybody now went out and partied in Vegas because they never got to go to Vegas during their season. So, I mean, it could definitely be a thing. And before we move on to the NBA, let's just kind of talk free agency. Still a lot of big names. Clowney's still available. And as an Eagle fan, Clowney was supposedly rumored to be talking to the Eagles. Clearly, we haven't seen anything come of that. Are there any guys that you guys want to see the Raiders try and go after? Where do you think these big names might land?
I'm kind of baffled that Clowney's still. I'll go for Daniel.
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to say maybe one more veteran running back I think would be nice to add to the fold. Maybe on a cheap deal, there's still guys out there like Devontae Freeman, for example, who I know is probably linked to the Eagles, like you guys are looking at him. Just to take more of the load off Josh Jacobs. I mean, we already got a nice running back stable with, they just drafted Lynn Bowden, but, you just don't want to run Jacobs into the ground his first 2 years, So
they kind of did that last year too.
So some nice veteran help would be nice. I think I loved Mukamara pickup, to be honest. I think we needed a veteran cornerback as well. So I like the way we stand right now. Maybe another interior guard, but I think for now we're sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, they actually. I'm pretty impressed. I can't remember the last time they went this ham in free agency, other than that one year when they brought in like all those old washed-up players like
Mm.
Stones True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a lot of hype. Actually, yeah.
Gordon, what are you thinking?
I kind of have to agree with Daniel there. If anything, maybe some depth, maybe some defensive depth, some offensive line depth. I mean, at this part of free agency and past the drafts, normally teams would be at this time of year going into training camp and starting to really figure out what, with the pieces they have, what they're going to do. So nothing too substantial that they can really add anyway. So just moving forward, just hopefully that they can start to push towards double-digit wins for the season.
And one last person I think we've talked about probably more than anybody in this offseason. And all you guys got to do is say yes or no. You think Dak gets his money?
Eventually.
It's a lot of money, man. But yeah.
But okay, so he gets his money, but is it from the Cowboys?
It has to be. Or unless Jerry, I think Jerry really boosted his ego this year, honestly, with that draft, being that he did it all himself, and then all the accolades and everybody congratulating on what a good job he did. Maybe he gets a boost of ego and like, okay, I can do this again. Maybe draft another quarterback. So you never know. You never know with Jerry. But Dak's gonna get his money. I mean, you don't have that good of a quarterback that young of age, and just let him go on the free market. So he'll get his money regardless.
He's a fan favorite too. I don't know. After the record they had last year with that insane defense, you have Zeke and Amari, and you only go. I think they went 8-8.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how you can say you want that much money.
Yeah,
but
it's
the market.
They're probably the best team in the NFC East. I'll say that they're better than the Eagles on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some NBA talk. So, with the possibility of some playoffs coming about pretty soon, there's been talk of maybe a modified schedule for the playoffs. What are some potential playoff formulations that you guys, were thinking about or are even interested about?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. One thing that I is kicking around the idea of, these teams at the bottom of the playoff bracket, they have to have some sort of incentive to come back. There's not going to be fans in the stadium. They're not going to make money off those tickets. They may get some TV revenue, but, to put those players in that type of position for, really nothing to play for, it's going to be hard to convince those type of players from Cleveland and Atlanta and so forth. So I think something, new of maybe a 14-team playoff, regardless of conference. So you got the top 14. So essentially that ends at, I believe it's Memphis. And then maybe you can do 15, 16, 17, and 18 have a play-in game. So that way, the winner of those make an even 16-team playoffs. So you'll have teams like, say, Brooklyn against New Orleans for a play-in game, and Orlando against Portland for a play-in game. That way you give at least those teams a chance to get in. Because honestly, I mean, once you go past there, you got Sacramento, all those types of, it's going to be hard to convince them to come back for really not playing for much. So I think that'd be kind of cool, and, it gives those teams an opportunity to really gel. It'd be something interesting, it'd be something new. Who knows, maybe they'd like it and stick with the non-conference playoffs. But that's just an idea I had.
No, it's crazy that you say that, because there's two things that I see in that. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but when they first started talking about bringing the NBA back, Steve Kerr kind of sarcastically was like, yeah, sure, we'll come back and play, but that they were essentially in off-season mode. And that they don't want to come back and play. And to me, that was super selfish, because it's like, great, you were on top for the last 5 years, but now that you're on the bottom, you don't want to give everybody else the courtesy of coming back. Secondly, to your point, that's interesting that you say that, because if you look at the Western Conference right now, there are about 3 to 4 teams fighting for 7 and 8. So giving them those play-ins or whatever they want to do in regards to schedule and records would actually be super interesting, because then you're not taking away games and abilities to get in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just for those fringe teams, like the Orlando, Brooklyn, Portland, New Orleans, maybe even Sacramento and San Antonio, who knows? You could throw them in. because they are Western Conference teams. You know, it's really those Eastern Conference teams that are just, you know, at the very bottom that really just doesn't have any incentive in coming back and putting those players in those positions. Because I mean, are you going to pay them hazard pay for returning back? You know, like it's just something to think about. You know, so I think for those teams that really are going to make a playoff run, it'll be worth it, and then at least give them a shot playing. You know.
Cool. What do you think would be some interesting playoff brackets?
I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that because I don't know how much revenue they're going to generate. They've been talking about cutting some players' salaries and whatnot, and I'm sure that's going to take a dump.
They officially cut them, I'm pretty sure.
They did. Yeah, so I'm not sure if the players will be willing. I really would hope so, but if there's no fans there, it kind of takes the live essence out of the game.
The only
less of a playoff game.
The only revenue that they would make would be off TV deals. And what's actually kind of crazy, if you think about it, would be if they go straight to playoffs, you then move all of your games to TNT, ESPN, ABC. So now all of your TV deals with your local cable providers go away. So really, the teams aren't making money.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Because think about it, the playoffs are played on TNT, ABC, ESPN. So now the Lakers wouldn't be playing on Spectrum, so they wouldn't make money off that deal.
Oh, I see.
And all these other teams wouldn't make money who play on like Fox Sports Net or like Yes Network, like any of those East Coast teams that play on those. They wouldn't make any money because their TV deals would be gone.
I honestly think that the first NBA game that's going to be played is going to have a higher watch rate than last year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah, and then those TNTs are gonna make some money.
So you guys still think that the favorites are the top seeds, even with the stopping of play? And I mean, like we're all Laker fans here. We want them to win. And you're not a Laker fan, Daniel?
He's a Clippers fan.
You're a Clippers fan. I thought you were a Lakers fan.
Clippers.
No. I mean, I got the Kobe, got to represent. But
even as a Clippers fan, I mean, the Lakers had finally hit their stride. The Clippers were a team that really hadn't fully played together, except for I think it was 4 games where everybody on the team was healthy and playing. I mean, you're now going to throw them into a playoff series without gelling again?
Right.
That's what I think it. Honestly, I think it puts them at an even playing field. Because they've all had the same amount of off time. And like you said, the Lakers were hitting their stride. Honestly, the Lakers look unbeatable. Like when the season stopped, I thought they were going to win the NBA Finals for sure, and probably sweep. Like they just looked unstoppable. But now with the break, I think it just puts teams at an even playing field where it might be interesting. You probably have to do 7-game series though, because I don't think you'd be able to throw them in like a shorter series. That'd just be unfair.
Right, but even, I mean, we're going to say they're putting them at an even playing field, but realistically speaking, that's the point of going into the playoffs and these teams that have finally taken time to gel. I mean, if you look, Gordon knows this, the Patriots don't start off hot every single year. By the time week 14 through 17 comes in, I mean, they're putting in players that they don't care because they finally reached that point of they don't need to gel anymore, So the Lakers being there, that was their shot. They were about to take the Western Conference and put them in the ground. And same thing with probably Milwaukee, and Boston. Now you have teams which, yes, they've gotten healthy, but was getting healthy worth the risk of now not gelling,
Yeah. You might need to do maybe a 2-week window where you're able to practice with their team before you get into the playoffs, something like that, where they can run scrimmages or something, because it'd be tough to literally just get thrown into the playoffs,
It makes me think, and Gordon and I were talking about this the other day, and he said something important. It's the best team, basketball is the one sport where, generally speaking, the best team in the league wins. There are very few times that teams who win the NBA Finals are not the best team. And I think you would find this year that somehow a team like maybe Utah or Denver or Philadelphia would somehow win. And you kind of sit there and you're like, well, were they really the team that should have won?
That's a good point.
It all comes down to kind of what Daniel said. Everything's just at an even playing field. There's nobody on hot streaks. There's no home team advantage. There's no home game advantage because the people in the stands are most likely going to be the other teams playing. That's it. Like it's just, this is not going to be an NBA playoffs. This is going to be a COVID Cup or whatever how you want to call it. You know, it's there's going to be an asterisk if they end up even playing, you know, for this championship. So love to see what happens.
Who all three of you, if they come back and they figure out this and whatever the case may be in the playoffs, who you think wins?
I can't say the Lakers wouldn't win, man. They look way too good. Hopefully they're still they still have that same energy, still have that same chemistry too.
Daniel?
I mean, hometown bias, man. I got to go with the Clippers. I just think they match up well. I mean, and the team to beat realistically is you're looking at the Lakers, you know, and I think we went 2-1 against you guys, even though that last game was just, I think we got smacked. I was actually at that game. It was horrible to watch, but the Lakers definitely the team to beat, but I'm always going to rock with Clippers.
Jordan?
I mean, it's hard for me not to say Lakers because obviously they were, you know, killing it. I'll mix it up. I'll say somebody like Boston. You know, they young team. They have a good head coach. They've already gelled. I'd love to see some random team in the NBA. They do not necessarily Boston, but I'd love to see somebody like the Nuggets or somebody random.
I think like Boston. To me, Boston, the Clippers, and the Lakers are the three best teams. I'm still not convinced that Milwaukee is the team that everybody thinks they are. And the break helped a team like Boston, who was playing well without their star, and now they're going to get their star back. So it's definitely going to be an interesting ride here to go down to the end of the NBA season.
Who do you think benefited the most from all this? Like what team? Like he said Boston kind of got better because, you know, their injuries kind of go away.
I would think more than likely it would probably be Boston and Philly, I would think.
Philly? Boston? Okay. I'll say the Nets.
The Nets?
I think KD might be healthy.
He won't play. If he plays, 100% he gets hurt.
We don't even know when this is going to start.
I think there's got to be a deadline where they go, if we don't start by this time, we're not doing it. There's got to be.
Yeah, because you don't really want to be playing basketball into October, you know, September. Like,
because it messes up. You got to get to the point where you still can start next season on time.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
but
it'll be weird.
But yeah, I honestly, I think this break, I think it helps out the younger teams, to be honest, more. Just because, you know, they I mean, obviously guys are at their top shape, but you know, the younger guys are more athletic, they got more life to them, right? So maybe a team like Miami, right? They've got all this rest. Now you're looking at them like, oh, you know, we're going into a series even. Like you said, no home court advantage. We all have the same rest. I don't know. I like Miami. Miami was playing well when the season ended as well. So I think they're a team to watch. Maybe even Utah. You know, like you said, Utah's interesting. But who knows with the Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell situation, all that kind of stuff. But I would say Miami. Miami's my team.
I see your point, but my only thing about Miami is that Miami is one of those teams that realistically, if you look at their roster, they're not that great. They were just super hot. Mm-hmm. So to me, a break would ruin that. They would come back now and have to completely re-gel, whereas you look at a team like Philly or Boston, essentially their issue was they were hurt. And that wraps up our segment with our guests today. We want to thank them for coming on and hopefully have them come back. And we want to wish you luck into losing the AFC West this year.
Thanks for having me. Go Raiders.
Appreciate it.
See you guys.
I finally hit a breaking point. Sports TV has now been ruined by many people such as Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, Nick Wright, and Max Kellerman. And for those of you who don't know who that are, they are analysts and sports writers who are on major networks that have seemingly become super popular just because they say things to get rises out of people and things that are so far outside of the box that you just ask why. And growing up my life revolved around sports. All I did was watch SportsCenter, read sports articles, and I knew everything about anything. And I've now reached the point where I can't even turn on ESPN without getting frustrated. We are allowing these analysts to just become famous and on TV for saying radical things and taking away from sports talk of what it is. The only real television that we can watch for sports talks are shows that have former players on there, such as NBA on TNT with Shaq, Charles, and Kenny, or even on MLB Network where they have former retired players along with the NFL Network and NBA Network. But companies like Fox and ABC and Disney are allowing these other shows on there that people just tune in to see what they say because it's dumb, not because it's actual sports talk. And it's really rubbing people the wrong way, and I think we need to get back to the roots of what sports talk actually is and debating what it needs to be. Also, why are we having analysts who don't talk about certain sports for 99% of the year all of a sudden talk about sports because one big event happens? Why is Stephen A talking about a UFC event? Why is he talking about college football? Where 99% of the year, all he talks about is the NFL, the NBA, and occasionally boxing. Stop having analysts talk about sports that they have no business talking about. And make sports television good again by taking these people off television and allowing sports to be represented in a way better way than as it is now. And that wraps up episode 4 of our Sunday Roundtable. We again want to thank Koa and Daniel for joining us this afternoon and talking some Raiders with us. They will be back joining us here in the near future. Look this week for some new content we are excited to give you. And please hit the subscribe button and that like button, and we will see you guys soon.